Your car knows where you live, it knows who to call, it knows your phone, your habits, even your garage code. And today, criminals, they don't need a tow truck or a crowbar, they need access. Cars are now computers on wheels. Dealerships are data hubs, and most drivers have no idea how exposed they really are. So, today's guest has spent over 30 years tracking criminals online and in the real world. And he says the auto industry is sitting on a massive blind spot. Now, if you own a car, most people do, drive a car, or plan to buy one, this conversation might change the way how you see everything. Joining me today is Robert Siciliano, cybersecurity expert, private investigator, best-selling author, and one of the most trusted voices in personal and digital security. You've seen him on CNN, CNBC, Fox, ABC, NBC, but today we're talking about something the auto industry isn't ready for: cybercrime on wheels. Robert, thank you for joining me.
It is my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's go into this in detail. Now that we have you, most people they still think of car theft as a physical crime. How outdated is that thinking in 2025?
Well, in 2025, viewing car theft as purely a physical crime, such as, smashing windows or hot wiring, is largely obsolete. Modern vehicle theft is really a digital crime at this point. As much as 90+% of security incidents in 2024 were executed remotely, wirelessly, right? And while car thefts in general have gone down, the first half of 2025, I think it was like as much as 25% or close to it, due to improved policing and manufacturing or manufacturers' security updates and so forth. The methods used by criminals have shifted to all high tech wireless exploits like relay and replay attacks. This is when thieves use inexpensive antennas to capture and amplify, a key fob, right? Your key fob.
Yeah.
If you can remotely start your car, right, then right there, it's vulnerable to a wireless relay type attack. Basically, there's like an antenna that's put into the mix, and it tricks the car into thinking that the key is present within the vehicle, right? Uh, Experts believe that as much as 90% of vehicles with the push to start ignitions are susceptible to these attacks as well. So it's no joke that Honda and Kia were exploited over the past few years because of TikTok. TikTok, had numerous videos that showed exactly how to go about doing it, and kids all over the place just did it for fun. And then, of course, those who wanted to get paid did it as well.
Yes, definitely. And it was a trend. And currently, Hyundai is paying out a massive lawsuit to basically a lot of the owners of those cars that got stolen. But we're going to stay on that same point. What's the most common cyber weakness you see in modern vehicles today?
Well, it's the fact that the car itself is designed for functionality. There is something called an immobilizer that they have added to the vehicle. It's basically software that has a level of encryption that prevents unauthorized use and startup from non-cloned devices. That said, nothing's foolproof, and nothing ever will be foolproof. The mere fact is, anything that is wireless, including a pacemaker in a human. Anything that is wireless is susceptible and vulnerable to some degree. There's all kinds of injection type attacks that can compromise or decrypt and just make sure that your insurance is paid up to date.
Yep, definitely. So basically, what I'm trying to follow along the line is that connected cars, are they actually making theft easier?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, connected cars have certainly made theft easier. Like I said, anything wireless is vulnerable. And additionally, software exploits and digital cloning are a big deal. Like, think of a locksmith and what a locksmith is capable of doing, right? For your home, right? For a door on a business, right? And or to get access into and duplicate a car key, right? Vehicles, as we know, are computers on wheels, and locksmith tablets, right? Essentially, they use professional grade locksmith tablets to plug into the car's onboard system and reprogram the security settings to create a new digital key on the spot. So once they get access inside the car, they can reprogram it 100%. And then viral exploits of sorts. Recent years saw a surge of thefts for specific brands. We talked about Hyundai and Kia due to those social media tutorials. I think over time, the automobile industry is going to get a little bit better at this. But at this time, they're still vulnerable. We are, to a degree, chasing this. And I don't know if that's going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, and it leads me into the point because the conversation is flowing beautifully in terms of, and this may shock a lot of people. What information does a modern car collect that will basically shock the average driver?
I do know for a fact that if I rent a vehicle, I behave myself. I do not drive a rental car the same way that I drive my own car, because I know that it's monitoring my everything, my driving behavior more than anything. There's various signals and sensors, potentially hundreds, even thousands, that record engine and performance data, of course, RPM, temperature, throttle, torque, load, all that stuff, fuel consumption. We know all that stuff, right? Fuel and energy data, miles per gallon, per, how fast you're eating up fuel. Location and GPS data, of course. GPS coordinates, speed, trip timelines, and so forth. And then there's safety and diagnostic data. This is kind of important. And insurance is often paying attention to this stuff, like trouble codes, ABS performance, airbag status, right? You want your car to monitor all that stuff in case something fails, of course. But then where we individually can get in trouble, right? If something bad happens, car accident, anything involving a rental car, pedestrian accident, is usage and driving behavior data, which of course involves acceleration, braking, cornering, idle time, driving patterns, anything like a harsh event, airbag goes off, that black box essentially is recording everything.
Recording everything.
Right. It's
Could I include like your phone data, your garage codes, your contacts, payment information?
Well, yeah, the infotainment system, when it connects to your phone, it's slurping your contacts, right? It's grabbing that data and putting it on the solid state drive and using that information for convenience purposes. But then that same data that you plug into a rental vehicle, now it's possible that somebody else can get that as well.
So your car isn't just transport, it isn't just a transportation for you, it's just a data vault, the black box as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, nothing post 2010 is analog at this point. It's digital.
Yeah. Let's touch on the middleman, dealerships. They have become a total digital operations from the time I was working there. You're talking about your CRMs, your financing apps, your key programming. Are they prepared for cybercrime?
It's all relative. I would say that the larger dealers are spending a bit more money to make sure that they are at a minimum compliant, right? Compliant, with state and federal laws, of course, right? Because they are any entity that's handling any financial information whatsoever is highly regulated, okay?
Yep.
And there are a half a dozen vendors throughout the country that have software that are installed on these various dealers' networks that are monitoring pretty much everything all the time. Traffic in and out, what's being clicked, what's being downloaded, what's being uploaded, and so forth, and looking for anomalies, vulnerabilities. They're constantly doing vulnerability scans, looking for flaws in the operating system or various intrusions. That said, the biggest risk isn't the actual network itself. the security of the network through a managed service provider, which is a tech company that handles the network, or a managed security service provider, again, a higher level security company that handles all of the operational data. That's not where the problem is. The problem is the salespeople, the administration, right? It's the people in the chairs in the office that have access to the data and to the devices, that they have access to outside the network. It's those within the organization, the humans, really, that they themselves either make mistakes, right? That happens all the time. They click something, they download something, or they're malicious in their nature. That's possible too. Insider threats, we call that. That happens, disgruntled employee, right? Or worse, the employee is tricked. We call it social engineering, right? The modern day con, right? So the employee thinks he or she is talking to IT, and they give up a passcode. They think that request that they got via email or text or even the telephone was somebody in a trusted space, somebody who manages their network, a boss, a coworker, the COO. And they willingly give up a username and a passcode and allow a bad guy backdoor access to that network. That's where the biggest problems are, because you can have all the security in the world, but hacking humans is how the bad guys often get in.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, very well put. The thing about with that in terms of dealerships, why are dealerships such attractive targets?
All of the financial information, credit cards, social security numbers,
Yes.
the high ticket vehicles, and it's not just hacking in the dealership. It's creating synthetic identities. Okay, so basically adopting a social security number or creating a social security number and getting credit using that adopted or that new social security number, and for a period of a year or more, getting credit cards, paying the credit cards off, getting loans, paying the loans off. And over time, this synthetic identity that is based on a brand new person, a new name, a new social, a new address. A credit is established over a period of time. And over the course of 9 months to a year, we call this a synthetic identity. And in due time, that synthetic identity creates a driver's license. All of that information goes into a dealership and buys a $80,000 vehicle, drives it off the lot, brings it to a shipping container and ships it overseas to Europe or Dubai.
Yeah.
And they sell it for pennies on the dollar. And that destroys the dealerships. That's big money. Synthetic identity theft.
You mentioned the human hacking, which is a profound way to put it. But what would you consider the weakest link? Is it the staff, the systems, or the vendors?
It is the staff. And here's how this works, right? So you and I, obviously humans, right? Human beings are what we call an interdependent species, which means that as humans, we depend on each other for our survival.
Yeah.
And not just for our survival, for our procreation. Without each other, the species would fail to exist, right?
Yeah.
And so being an interdependent species means that by default, we as human beings trust one another. Trust is our default, which means that even though some people say, well, I don't trust anybody. Yeah, you do. Because pretty much every day, most of the interactions you have in person, right? You pretty much give the person the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah.
Most of the emails you get, most of the phone calls you get, most of the text messages, in general, we pretty much give the benefit of the doubt, and we pretty much want to and need to trust, to get along. I mean, just to function, right? If we didn't trust anybody ever for anything, the wheels would just stop spinning, okay? So because of that, bad guys use the truth in all the various scams and ruses, the phone calls, the emails, the texts, and they twist things at the very last second. So all the various scams that we are inundated with, they know that we want to and need to trust. And they know that all they have to do is kind of shift things up just a little bit and bang, they get you.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the automotive industry is doing enough to educate their employees on managing risk. If anything, they might be doing what's called phishing simulation training. And phishing simulation training is when the company sends out scammy phishing emails to see who clicks the link as a test. And then if you click the link, then they'll follow up with a little bit of education. But the problem with this type of education is that in some cases, it makes people feel stupid. And people don't want to be made to feel stupid. And it doesn't really hit the nail on the head in regards to that security is a very personal thing. Like security physically begins with your protecting your physical body. And then from there, security being personal, it doesn't get more personal than your identity. So protecting your physical being, protecting your identity, protecting your bank account, your data, your dollars. And phishing simulation training does not do any of that. So it's important that the dealerships are educating their employees on security awareness, but in such a way that you affect the end user somewhat selfishly. Like, how does this affect him or her in their personal life?
So you have to go in from an emotional standpoint first before you can actually start doing anything else.
Exactly.
Psychoanalysis all over.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, look at, we are a selfish, self-interested creature. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You have to be somewhat selfish to get a good night's sleep, eat a good meal, take good care of your mind and your body in order to take care of your spouse and your kids. If you're no good to yourself, you're going to be no good to anybody. Yeah, so you have to take care of yourself. And with security, we are better at protecting the data at work if we understand how to protect ourselves first.
Yeah. Because we have seen, and I was going to ask you, like, have you seen cases where a breach shut down an entire operation? But CDK Global came to mind. So that's the latest one that clicked.
CDK Global, that was a nightmare. I mean, that was a ransomware attack back in a year-ish ago, right? It was a major cyber attack, and hackers targeted this company on purpose, and it affected 15,000 car dealerships.
Much more. That's only in the United States alone.
Thank you. Okay.
Because it have stretched across the Caribbean, South America, Latin America, and those weren't reported.
That disrupted sales, financing, inventory, right?
Yeah.
They demanded $25 million in ransom, and they paid it. Significant financial losses, forcing dealers to manually go back to paper for weeks. Like nightmare. And that attack was as a result of a password hack. Like social engineering, the modern day con. Humans were attacked. And eventually the humans gave up enough information that allowed them backdoor access to everything.
But on a quick note, how fast did that damage happen? Just to give a scenario.
I believe it was like everything unfolded in less than a week. And I think it took like a couple of months to get back online to the degree where like it was okay.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
So there was a massive financial fallout. I can just imagine how much personal information got out there.
And what it does is it disrupts operations. That's where the ransom stuff comes in. You know, it's one thing to compromise credit card numbers and social security numbers. And yeah, that's a big deal to the individual who's affected by it. That can be remedied with credit monitoring, identity theft protection, and credit freezes, right? So your social security number can be made useless with a credit freeze or identity theft protection or both. So not that big of a deal, right? Credit cards, all right, so you update your credit card, get a different credit card number, monitor the card activity, so refute unauthorized charges, right? All of that affects the individual. But it's when the ransomware shuts down operations.
Okay.
It's when the ransomware shuts down the operation's ability to function, to invoice, to run a credit check, to process a sale, anything. When you shut down operations, you are literally shutting down operations. It's like you're pulling the plug on everything. You can't function as a business. It's one thing to have a data breach. It's another thing to disrupt operations. And when that happens, that's what happens when you see what happened to Jaguar.
Yeah.
And that is the big money. The Jaguar Land Rover cyber attack, that was a major ransomware data theft. Criminal hackers from all over the world. It affected 100,000 jobs. Attackers, they use social engineering to steal valid login credentials, moving from the IT systems to the operational technology which controlled the factory floors.
Wow.
That's pay dirt.
Yeah.
You're a criminal hacker, that's what you're after.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get a social security number to open up a credit card number. It's another thing to go after a major player in the car industry and hold them hostage, or you're not going to be able to manufacture cars.
And they had to pay because thousands of dealers, millions of customers are sitting there being affected.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like that. And understand something, right? Whatever the ultimate breach was, right? Human hacking is how these things happen. You could point the finger all day long at, Jaguar Land Rover. Like, what did you do wrong? You have to understand that they're a victim of a crime. You don't blame somebody because their house was burglarized. But if they didn't have a home security system, then you're like, well, why didn't you have a home security system? If they didn't lock their doors, you're like, well, why didn't you lock your doors? So there is a level of responsibility there, of course. And
Over here in Ontario, the police officer said, just leave the keys at the doors because of the massive theft of cars was taken. They couldn't handle it. It was too much of a burden for them. And I think that police officer just gave up and said, you know what, it's too much. He made that statement. It's unfortunate, but it was just a human element being said. Sorry, I just had to slip that in.
Yeah. There's always more that can be done to tighten up that network. And training employees to manage risk is such an underappreciated methodology for making your employees part of the solution versus being part of the problem.
So it's always about training and employee development. It has to be a constant program going on.
Constant, yeah.
Yeah.
And not enough organizations invest in their people in that way.
Yeah, that part is true.
Yeah.
That part is so true. Let me slide over to the newer technology, which is electric vehicles. They rely heavily on apps, cloud access, and over-the-air updates. Are we trading convenience for vulnerability?
We are, yeah. There's no question about it. EV charging attacks, hackers can manipulate the EV charging stations and inject malware into connected vehicles or steal user payment data. These connected ecosystems rely upon each other. And the convenience of self-driving and all the various apps does lead to additional vulnerabilities. What we call this is an increased attack surface. Meaning the attack surface, say 20 years ago, was you'd need to break a window and pop the ignition. That was the attack surface, right? Now, the attack surface is hundreds or thousands of sensors in the vehicle. Every one of them that can be exploited. It's the ignition system, right? It's the remote start and so on. And as the attack system increases with EV and all the various apps and the self-driving and all the everything, as the attack surface increases, there's more to protect because there's more vulnerabilities. Yeah. And the conveniences of all of this is where those vulnerabilities begin. Now, there's something called application security. And application security is basically a term that applies to as an application is being built, application security is thought through at each stage of the build. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so application security is a part of software development, as it should be. But in order to rush a hardware out the door, a software out the door, sometimes application security takes a back seat. And we saw that early on with remote start vehicles and wireless vehicles. And it was problematic. And so when the manufacturers recognized risk due to your third party hackers on YouTube showing how to exploit a vehicle, mainly just to show that it's possible, not necessarily to encourage people to steal cars, but like good guy hackers, research is showing, look at what this manufacturer allowed out the door. Then they took it seriously. And they're taking it seriously now, but there's still going to be vulnerabilities.
Yeah. But on that particular note, what worries you the most about the next generation of vehicles?
What worries me the most is
Yeah.
the ability to remotely maneuver the vehicle, accelerate, gas, turn the wheel. That's what worries me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen so many videos on TikTok of Teslas accelerating out of control, self driving cars going off route, and so many others in terms of self driving electric vehicles. As technology evolves, there's no way of controlling everything. Gonna have your one and two mishaps, but as you know, we are not sure how serious they are because we're unable to see the data as to how many of these incidents are happening.
Yeah.
However, as you know, cell phones are everywhere, so maybe some people may be exaggerating a little bit in terms of a lot of these things.
My 2021 Yukon SLT is a gas driven vehicle. And I bought that puppy because it might be my last gas vehicle ever. And I'm holding on to that until I am 100% confident that self driving is actually hack proof.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand. Mine is a 2016, and I'm going to be holding it on until the wheels fall off. But if you had to give car owners just three security rules, what would they be?
Number one, I would do the research on your own vehicle. Okay. I would research your own vehicle to find out, what the vulnerabilities are. And once you make that determination, what those vulnerabilities are generally are patched with some form of a dealership download onto your device. Sometimes you can do it from your own driveway. Other times you have to take it right to the actual dealership. And then
Like
from there,
like phone peering or app permission on data resets and all these things.
yeah, yep. And then from there, consider what third party security tools are available to you. A simple kill switch, an under the dash toggle switch is an option. And if that's an option, I would consider that due to the fact that especially cars that are known as high in demand, easy to hack, easy to crack, a simple kill switch that could override the ignition should be a serious consideration for car owners.
When you're selling or trading a vehicle, does your personal data transfer with that vehicle?
So just like resetting a cellular phone, resetting an operating system of a computer, you are able to reset to a degree the OS of the vehicle. And I would research that to find out what your options are, how much data is retained versus how much is wiped out. I do know that the majority of the vehicle data itself is going to be maintained, of course. Mileage and everything that led up to that mile, performance, etc. Right? That can't be wiped out. You don't want it to be wiped out. And to wipe it out in certain ways, it potentially could be illegal. But your personal data is another story. There are a number of ways to go about that. I would do the research on your make and model to find out what your options are. Anything that you need to do, of course, a Google is always a Google search and AI search away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so much easier now. Particular parents worrying about accidents. What should a parent also be worried about in terms of the digital exposure in their kids' cars?
So It's an interesting question, and I think actually the parents should be more concerned about what their kids are doing in the car and monitoring their kids' behavior in the car, their driving performance, than be concerned about the sensitive information about their children that might be exposed. In other words, I think the risk is the teens driving is where the risk is. I don't know about you, but I was 16 once, and I am the reason why insurance rates are so high for teenagers now. Yeah. I mean, the way we drove back then, and I'm 57 years old, so we're talking, 40 years ago. And, doing 150 miles an hour on the highway was
Yeah,
was just normal. We just
cool.
did
Yeah.
that all the time. And, in metal vehicles with zero crumple zones. And the fact that, we survived all of that is astonishing. Kids might be a little bit smarter today, but cars are also a lot faster too. And parents should be very concerned about their children's driving, especially young men, and making sure that they're very aware of the driving performance.
Anything like social engineering through connected systems?
I'm not really sure about that. I know that it's possible to manipulate the vehicles remotely, to manipulate the people in the vehicle remotely. I haven't heard a lot about that, but
Okay.
I'm sure it's possible.
Okay. Is the auto industry ahead of criminals or chasing them?
It is a battle 24/7, 365 between good guy hackers and bad guy hackers. It is a battle. And I would say the good guys are ahead. And the reason why is because the lights are on. The refrigerator's working, right? Food is being delivered. The gas stations have gas, right? We are functional. The banks have money in them. You know what I'm saying? So if the bad guys were winning, we would literally be in the dark because that's what they want. The banks would not have any money in them. So the good guys are in fact winning. You'll know when the bad guys are winning if and when the lights go off and the refrigeration is no longer, gas stations can't pump gas, ATMs don't work, and we're basically back to the 1800s. That's when you know the bad guys essentially are winning or have won. Until that time, I recommend that everybody back up.
Yeah.
Extra food, extra gas, extra power, extra dollar bills, cash, water. I have, at any given point in time, 200 gallons of water stored, about 6 months of food, ammunition, and so forth.
Yeah. That's a great better way to look at it because we're not looking at what we have in terms of what can happen. So we always have to be grateful of everything that's going on around us. But in terms of following up on that, what do you think needs to change? Or who needs to take responsibility? The automakers, the dealers, or consumers?
So there needs to be a level of responsibility on the consumer's end so they have a better understanding of risk. I hear all year long, because I get in front of live audiences every day, if these criminal hackers, if they could just take what they know and what they do, they could cure cancer. And I say, well, yeah, I guess so, but here's the deal. The criminal hackers make more money sometimes in a day than many of us make in a lifetime, some of them, okay? And then from there, the criminal hackers themselves, they're sociopaths. They're psychopaths. They're hardcore narcissists. They don't have empathy, sympathy, guilt, remorse. They look at crime as a business. They look at you and I as their natural prey. They're the lion. We are the gazelle, okay? And most consumers are unaware of any of that. Most consumers don't do much in the way of protecting their own identities. They don't do much in the way of getting what's called a credit freeze for your social insurance or social security number. They don't do much in the way of managing their passwords effectively. Most consumers are using the same passcode across multiple accounts versus using a password manager and having long and strong passwords and a different one for every account, and using two factor authentication for every single critical account. Most consumers aren't doing any of that stuff. And I know this because I poll every one of my audiences, and at any given audience, about 90% of them are all using the same passcode across multiple accounts. And only about 10% of them are using two factor authentication. So
Okay.
the consumer, we need to engage in basic security practices like it means something and matters to us
Yeah.
versus it's not going to happen to me and functioning in denial. And when we all collectively engage in the process of managing risk, then it makes all of us a tougher target for the bad guy. We can't just rely on the government. You can't rely on dealerships or manufacturers. You can't rely on law enforcement. It is up to you and I. I mean, when you're out and about, it is up to you to protect you from a predator. Who else is going to do it for you?
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand how the importance of them just trying to protect themselves. And it goes right back to customer education and customer awareness. And we touched on the point of individuals, employees not being trained on the importance of the information they're managing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And that starts with management at these particular businesses, because right now everything is sensitive in terms of what you're doing. Everything we do on a day-to-day basis now involves data, because most companies, they're offering QR codes, they're offering emails, they're offering social media apps, everything else. And most people, they have to volunteer a particular information in order to access these apps and these services from these particular companies. So it is important that we must take responsibility for our day-to-day activities going out there.
Yeah.
So, and rightly, you're totally on point with that.
I look at personal security, right? All security is personal, right? I look at personal security no differently than I look at health. If you want to live a relatively quality life, you have to take care of your body. You have to get a good night's sleep. You have to nourish your body with good foods and enough fluids. And you have to take good care of yourself and get your cardio going every once in a while. And, just make good decisions in regards to physical health and mental health. And security is the same thing. No one is going to make you healthy. You have to make yourself healthy. No one's going to make you secure. You have to make yourself secure. It's all one and the same. And when we take that proactive approach to our physical and mental health and to our physical security, then we have a bit more control. And that's what security is. It's all about control. And the more
Right.
control you have in that regard, the tougher target you are.
Yeah. On a final note, 'cause we're about to wrap up. What's the one mistake see car owners make that criminals love?
Leaving keys in the ignition, leaving the vehicle unlocked, and thinking that it can't happen to me. I mean, that really is it. It just sounds so rudimentary, but thinking it can't happen to me and like just exposing themselves like that. You would not believe how many people just leave their keys in the vehicle. It's just astonishing to me. And it's everywhere because they don't want to believe or think that they would ever be targeted.
I think the people still have an element of trust, which is a good thing, but they're leaving out the important part, personal security, which is very important.
Trust is overrated.
Uh, well, you're gonna have to explain that in detail a little bit more, but I get where you're going with that. The This conversation, it changes how you will look at your car. If you own one or plan to share this with someone you care about, because in today's world, protecting your car means protecting your identity. Robert, where can my audience contact you for more information, insights, and personal security, safety, and advice?
I am on all the socials. Of course, if you just search Robert Siciliano, Siciliano, easy to find. And then, of course, my website is protectnowllc.com. Again, protectnowllc.com.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and I truly hope at least one person will be saved from your expertise. I'm totally sure I will. I'm gonna have to start increasing my two-step authentication.
Yes, please do.
It has to be done.
Yeah,
It must be done.
yeah.
So I thank you for reminding me about
Yeah.
that. Remember to grab a copy of my ebook, The Party Manager Guide. This has been the Motor Piles podcast, and I will catch you in the next one.